I think it's safe to say if you're a fan of SpaceX and Elon Musk, you're probably a fan of Tesla, probably a fan of the Boring Company, and maybe even a fan of Neuralink. And you may even listen to this podcast slash YouTube channel by Ryan Tanaka. It's called Neura Pod. He gives some great updates about Neuralink, kind of like what I do with Starlink, where that is my focus. And so I wanted to reach out to Ryan and talk to him about his channel, his excitement about Neuralink, and I just wanted to get to know him a little bit better, and I thought you guys would all enjoy this conversation, so here we go. I was interested in your channel, not only because I'm interested in Neuralink, but I kind of cover Starlink as my main focus, and I don't see a lot of channels like specifically dedicated to Neuralink. So tell me a little bit how you started and kind of, let's start there.
Sure. So I guess it started because I love the mission of the company. I started learning a little bit about what they were doing in 2017. I think there's another release of information, or the first major public release of information in 2019. And I started realizing, okay, Elon is spending a greater percentage of his time than he used to at this company called Neuralink. It's very small, and there's just not a lot of news out there about the company. And I had been watching and listening to Rod Mauer with Tesla Daily for a long time. Thought he did an excellent job, and just thought, if I'm curious about Neuralink and keeping up to date with it, and there's not a Tesla Daily for Neuralink, then it would be fantastic for somebody to do that. And I just thought, yeah, I'm just super passionate about what the mission of the company is and what things they could do in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, just decided to start, and now it's grown into something bigger.
Hey everyone, welcome to Neura Pod, a channel about all things related to the Elon Musk company, Neuralink.
Seriously, I know. I mean, like I first found your channel a few months ago, and I feel like your subscribers have just really, gone through the roof since then. So yeah, when did you kind of feel like, okay, like my channel's really taking off? Like what year was that?
So I started, I think, in July last year, and then from July until December of 2020, it, for all intents and purposes, wasn't gaining much traction. And then I did a November update video and December update video, and the December one got 50,000 views, and the subscribers started increasing. And I thought, okay, well, that's one of the things that I intended to do initially, but now it's very clear that, okay, we need to at least do a monthly update. Hopefully there's going to be enough Neuralink related news. And obviously that's a problem that slowly goes away over time, because they're going to release more and more news.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess for the time being, it's been just trying to talk to different neuroscience experts, people who have any information about the engineering behind what Neuralink is trying to do, and then also cover things just generally related to the brain. Because one of the things that I initially was thinking when I was starting the channel was it would be fantastic to inspire as many young people to learn about the brain as possible. I was just thinking, like, when I was a kid, there were certain things that maybe I noticed, maybe I didn't, that basically consciously or subconsciously influenced me to study what I studied, which is engineering. And I thought, well, there's going to be these future generations that could also be influenced by the smallest little thing, or inspired by the smallest little thing. If they're inspired to learn about the brain, then it's way more likely that 20 years from now, we're going to have enough people that are curious, and that field, I suspect, would grow substantially as long as we inspire them now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of my mission with my channel, is inspiring more, young girls, because there's also not a lot of young girls interested in STEM. So that's really awesome. So explain a little bit more about your background and maybe your day job. I'm guessing you still have a day job.
I don't have a day job. but I guess so. My background is I grew up in Southern California. Went to school in Indiana at a small school called Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. Yeah, very small school, technical school. Studied civil engineering for undergrad, and then went back to grad school there for a degree in engineering management. And then after that, I I spent time like basically just traveling around and seeing different things. And then uh, after that, I was like really during that time, I was thinking I should start a business that I'm extremely passionate about. It's basically like helping retirees do consulting work because I think they have years of experience. And yeah, so anyway, that I guess that's what I would consider my day job. It doesn't produce any income, but um, Neura Pod is something that I was thinking would just be this, I don't know, 5 hour per week commitment. Obviously, it's a little bit more than that now, and yeah, just trying to grow to be much bigger than just a YouTube channel. Like I want it to be like a formal company with a ton of different initiatives.
Right. No, that's awesome. But is it, I mean, is it enough to kind of like sustain you right now? Like what you're generating from it?
It's not,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't know. I guess I basically just live off of the Tesla stock income. Because so I interned with Tesla in 2015, and I had been learning about the stock market and just very passionate about business stuff. So I'd always been interested about how businesses are operated, how they grow from nothing to be these giant corporations. And that interest was super natural for me to that interest caused me to naturally just be curious and learn a ton of things about the stock market since high school. So having like started knowing about the stock market plus hearing about Tesla in the news caused me to realize that huge spike in 2012 and 13. Like, okay, I was more attentive to what they were doing, but I still felt like, oh, it seems overvalued. I don't know for sure, but it seems overvalued. I'll just wait for it to come down. Maybe I'll play with it later. And then in 2015, when I got the internship, it was like, whoa, the team is amazing. It was like, yeah, I was just like thinking back to all the people that I had known in high school and college and middle school and stuff. And it was like I took the top like 5 people of each grade that I've ever been in, and then like they're all at Tesla. It felt like that. And so I started investing in Tesla in 2015, and then committed more in 2017, more in 2018. 2018 was when I like really just was going pretty crazy with the options and stuff. And yeah, they pretty much all expired worthless. The ones that I bought in 2017, and then obviously it took off in 2019. But most of the options that I were playing with are just, yeah, expiring worthless.
Man, hindsight is 2020. I wish I would have gotten in the game back then, but I did not know. What was it like I didn't know that you interned at Tesla. What was that like and how long was that?
It was a fantastic experience. The first time was 3 months in 2015 in the summer. That was with Power Pack deployment. So basically these large, big scale commercial, industrial energy storage units, or basically just huge batteries. And then the second time was 5 months in 2017 between undergrad and grad school. And I was working on the supercharging team. And that was also just a fantastic experience. Got to have like quite a bit of responsibility for an intern. And I think that's generally true at all of Elon Musk's companies. You do like, yeah, I just felt like relative to some of my other internship experiences, it was like way more responsibility.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Did you ever want to like work there full time? Was that a goal?
I did. It was a goal. And in 2015, I thought I did an okay job. I felt like it was my first internship. It was my first work experience other than like a work study job in school. So I felt like I did okay. Like there's one project that I felt like I did a really good job on. And then the other stuff, it's just mediocre, I felt. So I was thinking at the time, well, maybe I'm not going to get an internship again. And then fortunately, my mentor recommended me to the manager that I got interviewed by for my second internship. So then did that one, and I felt like, oh, I did better than the first time. And I felt like I was just more mature, like had other work experiences, had studied abroad. So just like generally had more confidence and felt like, oh yeah, I did a pretty good job. And then tried to join like a similar team to what I was interning on, and didn't get the position. And then just like followed up a couple other times in 2017 and didn't get positions. So then I was just like traveling. I ended up just like continuing to travel, and then was like, okay, well, it seems like I'm not going to get a position on this specific team, and I can keep trying. And I don't know if it's naive of me to think this, but I really believe that if I kept trying with other people that I had talked to on different teams, I think I could have gotten a position. But it was like, it was so odd. Like during the time I was traveling, I started realizing this retiree business was just such a needed thing. And it's even more so, it's accelerated with COVID.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many things that make me want to spend more and more time on it. And that was true back then. And now it's even more true. So I'm kind of juggling, like, how do I don't know, I guess spend enough time on Neura Pod to have it grow, but not a lot of my own time, just like help the team grow and not myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you kind of a one-man band, or do you have a team working with you on Neura Pod?
Yeah, we have a team now, 2 other full-time people, and then a handful of other people helping out with various little things. So like we're actually tomorrow, we're releasing a cartoon series that's, which I've been like extremely excited about. I think, yeah, I'm very excited about it. So we're releasing that tomorrow. There's one full-time animator and cartoonist who's working on it, and he and I collaborate. He does the majority of the actual work, but I help, I don't know, just share ideas and provide guidance on like the general way that we should do things. So anyway, he's full-time, and we have a different group of people who are helping with the voice acting. And, you know, you can imagine there's a handful of different characters, and
Right.
they all need separate voices. So yeah, just like a bunch of people for that. People who are helping out with written content that's related to Neuralink, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and neuroscience. And then, the other full-time person is working primarily on editing the videos, doing research for future videos. And then also he speaks fluent Spanish. He's from Chile. So we have like a Neura Pod Spanish channel.
Wow.
And I think in the future that'll be pretty good. Like I think a lot of YouTube channels will eventually do that. So it's like, okay, well, we might as well do that now and hopefully capture that audience as much as possible.
I've had one person ask if I can like translate or make some videos in Spanish, and I'm like, but yeah, I mean, that's great. You know, more accessibility and just communicating with a broader audience. What, you know, you're pretty much the expert in this realm. So what are you most excited for about the future of Neuralink in the short term and in the long term?
Okay. So I should preface by saying I don't feel like the expert at all. I do feel like I'm fortunate to be in the position where I am trying to learn about Neuralink early in a public way.
Mhm.
But I definitely don't have the technical depth of knowledge that some of these other folks that I'm talking to have. That being said, I, as a regular member of society, I just am super excited about the potential to help paralyzed people regain mobility, regain any sort of control. So maybe it's just they're paralyzed in some form, with like, or maybe they just don't have, maybe they don't have full mobility to control a computer or a mouse or keyboard. And so a Neuralink would be able to help with that. They could basically think and then have a prosthetic arm or robot arm control the mouse or keyboard. That's, to me, huge. Like, I think it completely changes somebody's life positively. So I'm super excited about that. Down the road, I think they could also, in theory, do the same thing with prosthetic legs. So then all of a sudden, somebody who is formerly paralyzed, they now have significantly more mobility than they would have previously. There's also other applications for like helping people with dementia. I think way down the road, even Alzheimer's, because at least as I understand it right now, Alzheimer's is typically just blocked neural connections. And so if you can bridge that connection in a different way or somehow wirelessly connect the two, then it's like the person no longer has Alzheimer's, or at least they don't have the symptoms. So, and that completely changes, like, it's basically like they're dead and then come back to life. It's just amazing. So all those things are super inspiring to me. And then I guess in the longest term, there's more of these fun things, or just things that very capable humans could do for fun.
Right.
So it's like with the gaming and entertainment, and I think it has a bright future.
Do you think that there's an argument with, as we're talking further down the line with AI being more integrated in society, that at some point, all humans might need to adopt a Neuralink to, not become obsolete? I mean, because you're competing with, super intelligent robots that maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I like to think of it as similar to cell phones, how the impact that cell phones and computers have had on humans relative to the people who persistently, or just, I don't know, they just decide, I don't want to have a computer, or I don't want to have a smartphone in my pocket. I think it'll be pretty similar to that.
Right.
The advantage is clear. If you have a smartphone, you basically have the world's information in your hands. But I guess what Neuralink is intended to do is intended to be built for, is the interface between our brains and our cell phones right now is extremely slow. We're just typing with our thumbs and receiving the input in the form of visual and auditory information. When we're receiving the information, it's pretty high band. It's a pretty good amount of data being input into our brains. When we're outputting, it's extremely slow. But with the Neuralink, both directions could be much faster than they are today. So yeah, the people who choose not to have that, I think they would kind of get left behind, similar to how they kind of get left behind now if they don't have a smartphone.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Yeah, wow, it is so cool. What would you say is a common question from your viewers? I know, like with my Starlink focus, most people are like, when am I going to get my Starlink? But would you say that there's like a reoccurring question that you get from your people?
Sure. I tend to get asked when human trials are starting, because that's one of the major next steps for Neuralink to make progress, or for Neuralink to make, I guess, public progress, because
Right.
they're obviously always making progress. But human trials, Elon has said that it's most likely going to be next year. And I think that'll be, I've started looking into like what that FDA approval process is. I still don't know the full details of it. But I think once they're able to do that, they'll have a little bit more safety data, and they can just test more robustly. And they've basically already done tests in like a monkey, and being able to, and a pig too, so different animals, and being able to do that, I think showcases that, okay, if those are safe, then in theory there's not so much difference from a human. So I think things will probably go well, but they're also trying to reiterate and improve the design consistently. So it's like, maybe this former design worked in a monkey. Now we have to do this updated design in a monkey, and then also in a human, and see what's possible. And gosh, I keep rambling, but yeah, that's one
Yeah,
of the
you're doing
questions that I
great.
get asked.
Yeah, you're doing great. What about, this technology and this concept isn't entirely new, right?
Right, correct. Yeah. So I think one of the first things that was publicly demonstrated was a chip in a monkey, or brain machine interface implanted in a monkey in 2008. There was prior work to that for sure. But I recall seeing at least one video where it's like, whoa, this, a monkey could do that. They've also had work done in humans previously where they're able to control a computer mouse with just their mind. And it dates back a long time ago. So
It's
it's not,
crazy. It's so hard for me to even grasp like how that's possible. Would you say that there are a lot of doubters of Neuralink?
yeah, definitely. It's been interesting to have the podcast because I kind of get both sides of the audience, and it's a very polarizing topic. So some people are extremely supportive, some people are, just very skeptical. And so I think part of my job in this position is to help bridge that gap a little bit for people who are super skeptical and just not aware of what Neuralink is really truly trying to do. And then there are some people who fundamentally just disagree with the idea of implanting a chip into our bodies.
Right.
And so for those people, I think it's that decision or that idea is guided by a variety of different factors. And so some of them, I don't think I can change their mind. And that's okay. I think there are plenty of people now that just don't want to have full accessibility to smartphones or do certain things with technology. And it's great that it's their choice. So
Right.
with a Neuralink, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's their choice. I suspect that nobody's ever going to just be able to perform a surgery without the person knowing, or unwillingly force them to have the surgery. So yeah.
Wow. I just love, your topic of focus. And I think it's so fascinating. Were you surprised? Is his name Max Hodak when he stepped down? And what was kind of the reasoning behind that?
Yeah. There hasn't been too much publicly stated from Max or from Neuralink or from Elon about why he left. However, he did make the announcement on Twitter. And he said, I think it was April. Well, so May 1st, he made the announcement, and I think it was in April that he left or was asked to leave. And I was surprised by it. I think Neuralink is going to be totally fine without him. I think they would have. I think I think people don't give him enough credit for some of the things that he's worked on previously. So it's it's very tough for me to say like would they have made faster progress with him or without him. I don't know, but I think inevitably it will be a success in the future. So yeah, I'm not sure what exactly happened, but Max has written some things on his website, his personal website, about what he's working on now. He has like another startup called Science Corporation, and they're working with stuff related to the brain, not directly competing with Neuralink, but yeah, I think he'll have an extremely successful career doing cool things, working on cool projects. And I think Neuralink will also be extremely successful.
Right.
So, but I was surprised by it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were. Yeah. I want to go back to the YouTube for a moment, you know, because I feel like it's we've experienced a similar trajectory. I mean, my channel really started in February when I first made the Starlink video. Now I'm over 25,000 subscribers and, you know, way less than a year. And I feel like you're experiencing a similar thing. So I always ask people that are on YouTube, you know, what would be your advice to aspiring YouTubers? Because I feel like there's a lot of them.
Sure. So I think the advice is different based on the stage of the channel. If they're completely, if they haven't even started the channel, and say just think that you want to get to the next incremental step. So just think like you want 100 people to watch your video, or think that you're going to create the highest quality video possible to share with your friends and family. And if you do a fantastic job for them, there's bound to be other people in the world that are interested in that topic. And YouTube does a fantastic job of giving that video to that audience. And so, yeah, for somebody who's just thinking about YouTube, I think my advice would be, okay, number one, it's extremely early still. I believe like YouTube is much more mature than it was 5 years ago and much more mature than it was 10 years ago, but I think it has decades to come. And then just try to make a really good video for 100 people. For somebody who has like 1,000 subscribers, I'd say just try to be consistent, which is a really difficult thing to do. And then I think for somebody who has channels like ours, I think there's things that we can do that other YouTubers of our size don't realize that they could do. So in other words, like, I think 1 million subscribers is actually pretty small relative to the people who are actually interested in Starlink or in Neuralink. And so if we can think about it as, okay, well, we have a huge audience out there and they're still not watching our content,
Right.
Then we should try to accelerate it as much as possible. And yeah, that's part of the reason that I want to do this cartoon series, is like, we just need more eyeballs to know that we exist.
Right.
And yeah.
I feel like the cartoon idea is going to be really successful. You know, there's a lot of channels that do that kind of whiteboard, you know, animation. And I think that's a great idea. So good on you. I bet that's really exciting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's been a while that we've been working on it. I think the initial idea was like, gosh, I don't know. I must have sent a text to one of our team members, like, it might've been a year ago at this point. And then really started working with this animator and cartoonist like around July or August. And then, yeah, he's been working really fast and hard and doing a great job. So it's just like, that's how long it takes basically for a one-man person to be doing this decently high quality cartoon. It's not like the lowest budget nor the highest budget.
Right.
But I think it's done pretty well. So
where's he based out
of? He's in the UK.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love how, like, just being on YouTube, you're connected with people around the world. I mean, like, how cool is that? Some of the people I'm sure you've had to, gotten to interview and, would have never crossed paths with them before. Tell our viewers maybe like one person that if they have time to watch one of your interviews, I'll link it. What's one of your favorites?
Oh gosh.
You're like all of them.
Yeah. I was very happy that I got the chance to speak with a former Neuralink engineer. His name is Han Zhang, and I think he gave some pretty good insight into what the early days of the company were like. Yeah, that was probably one of the most interesting ones. There's other interviews that I've done with people who are extremely respected in the field for their prior work, and so it's unfortunate that those types of interviews just don't tend to not get as many views.
Right.
But I personally felt really privileged to be able to speak to those types of people, like Dr. John Donahue, and yeah, there's a variety of others that are going to be published in the future. So yeah, just very excited about this.
Absolutely. Man, I'm trying to think of any more questions.
Sure.
I love YouTube. It's so cool.
Yeah,
Right?
I love to. Yeah, I mean, if I can ask you some questions, I will.
Oh, sure.
Because I saw that you were or are still currently a news reporter.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you decide I'm going to commit to YouTube in February 2021?
So I had started making videos like during the pandemic, during summer, during the pandemic. So like July of 2020. And I was trying to find what my niche should be. I was, making travel vlogs of cool Airbnbs. I like to travel too. I think it's one of the greatest gifts and everyone should do it more. But that wasn't really taking off. And then my ex-boyfriend at the time ordered Starlink. He wanted to become a beta tester. And I didn't know really anything about Starlink, but he's like, hey, maybe you should make a video about this for your channel. And I'm like, okay, because it was so limited at that time, especially back in February. And I saw that really started to take off. And I feel like, the Elon Musk universe, there's a lot of saturation in Tesla and even like SpaceX, although, I still think like Starship is cool to cover. But there wasn't like a dedicated Starlink source. And so I was like, well, using my background in news, I can continually update people on the news cycle. I can edit really quickly. I do all of my own stuff. I don't have a team. It's literally just me. And, I feel like I want that control. So, I mean, good on you for being able to release some of that control. Cause, this is, we've worked really hard on our channels. So you don't want anything messed up, but yeah, once it just started to take off, I'm like, this is unique because not a lot of females are in this industry. And also there's not really a dedicated Starlink source. And so it just kind of blossomed from there. And then I've tried to expand into maybe some more astronomy related education. I've befriended these Harvard astronomers, just so crazy, right? I've stayed at their houses and
Wow.
yeah, and interviewed Avi Loeb, who was on Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan, and so it's really cool to, at first I really wasn't sure it was going to go. I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to broadcast my YouTube. Who cares what I have to say? But then I'm like, well, it's not really so much about what I have to say. It's about interviewing people that are experts in the field or even just getting the information out there. So it's kind of become a passion, and especially seeing I've been told it's kind of like a hockey stick, we're, just going up, and it's really exciting. And people are, more people are joining Patreon and buying merchandise. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is just becoming so much more than what I ever really thought it would. But I've talked to people like Marcus House and Scott Manley, and I mean, they have huge followings. And Marcus, I mean, he's full time. Scott Manley still probably makes boatloads of money doing all the other things that he does. So I don't blame him for not being full time. He's doing well. again, it's like a niche that I never really thought that I'd end up in. And then when it started to really grow, I'm like, okay, I really need to like educate myself and learn more about this. Because I don't have like that background, but that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere and you can learn and just put the time in. So yeah, it's kind of wild. But I definitely want to see it grow. It's like I make a new milestone in my mind and then I hit that and then it's like, okay, well now what,
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
it's been cool. I'm sure it's been cool for you too. It's like you wake up and you're like, wow, like I have like almost like a small church of people that like care about the content I'm putting out. And, I'm sure you have like some loyal fans. You notice them comment repeatedly and it's like, how cool, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I could say exactly what you said. Like I love YouTube. I
Yeah.
think it's still, I don't know. I just think it's fascinating that it exists, and you can just speak to, like you were saying, like Harvard professors,
Yeah.
people who have tons of real expertise in a given field, people all around the world, people in like a remote village in Northern Africa. I don't know. There's just so many cool things about YouTube, and just I don't know, even the internet in general.
Oh yeah.
YouTube will probably get to the place where every single TV channel has the equivalent of like 10 very high quality production commercial budget channels on YouTube.
Right.
Like the Food Network, there's
Right.
got to be like the Food Network, but channels on YouTube that's like a Chinese Food Network,
Right.
American, Latin America, it's like every single country's Food Network, and then tons of different variations of each of those. And I think in the long term, it's going to be venture backed, super high quality production budget videos and channels. And so like with Tesla and SpaceX, I think there are quite a few, but for those who can invest tons of time and money into it, and just focus on creating the best high quality content, I think there still tons of room to grow.
Right. At what point did you realize, okay, I need help? Like I can't just do this only me.
Well, so I think at the beginning it was, I would like help.
Yeah.
And then somebody commented on one of the videos saying, oh, like I could help with timestamps, and they wanted to get paid for it. At that time, I didn't want to pay for those. So then he said, well, I could also edit the videos. And in my mind, it was like, well, I've been kind of pondering over whether it makes sense to have an editor or not. So we'll just try an episode. You did a good job. Like, okay, let's work with him on doing these other videos. And then after he was doing it, it was like, well, I don't want to go back to editing the videos. It just takes a long time. So then once he started doing that for a while, I started realizing like, oh, there are so many different things that I can do to help accelerate the growth of the channel. And I don't think hiring is a good proxy for how fast you can grow, but I think some of the things that we did in the early stages it was really necessary to hire some people. So yeah, I think some of the things that we're working on, like they haven't seen any light at all. And I think they will in the next month or two. And so, yeah, I just think like we're just so early.
So you have a podcast. So why do you have both? And where do you see more engagement?
Definitely see more engagement on YouTube. So, okay, I should answer the question. So I definitely see more engagement on YouTube, about 100 times more on average.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The reason I have the podcast though, is because I was initially thinking I was going to do audio only. And I was just going to release updates about Neuralink news whenever I had the time. And then if there was somebody in the field that I wanted to interview, I would have a good excuse to interview them. Versus like, alternatively, it would have been, I don't have the podcast. And I would be like, hi, Max, I'm a kid that's interested in what you do. Like, can I talk to you?
Right.
So yeah, that's why the podcast had started. But then I spoke with Rob of Tesla Daily. I don't know if you've watched that. Okay. Just a huge fan of like the quality and consistency and style that he has. And so I reached out to him prior to doing an actual episode for Neura Pod. And he said his primary advice is to do YouTube. And it was because he had seen what it was like to do an audio only podcast for 2 or 3 years and then just do like a small little video on YouTube with just a couple of images that were still and
Right. Easy.
yeah, super easy. And then realized like, whoa, he's getting quite a bit of traction. And after that, he was like, okay, he's committed to YouTube because there's so many different things that you can do if you have a bigger audience.
Right.
So yeah, that's the reason.
I've like debated putting like longer format or maybe just like really unedited versions of my conversations on a podcast, but I'm like, I don't even know if it's worth it, you know, like it's just how divided can your interests be, especially when I factor on like the full-time job and then like my passion rock climbing and like dedicating time to get better at that. There's like so many things I want to do. Yeah, so but it's definitely, you know, it's just incredible to me that even dedicating like 10, I don't even know if 15 hours, probably not, and I'm already like, you know, able to like pay my rent like from YouTube lately. I mean, that's kind of crazy, you know, and it's
Yeah.
it's helpful, you know, it's great.
Right.
So I'm guessing that a bucket list interview for both of us is Elon.
That would be fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to reach out to him?
Yeah, I sent him an email at the end of my first internship. I don't know if he ever responded because immediately after I sent the email, I turned in my laptop. Like it was last day and I was like,
oh no,
you know, I turned it in. And then right when you turn it in, they deactivate all your accounts to security and all that. So then, yeah, I don't know if he ever responded, but
you're like that missed connection on Craigslist, you know?
right, yeah. So then I did that, and then I've been trying to get his attention to, like, in the cartoon series that we're releasing, he's going to be one of the characters, and it was like I was debating whether or not it makes sense to have him as one of the characters or have it be somebody similar to him, and it's kind of a risk. Like I want him to be able to say like, oh yeah, you're able to do this. And he hasn't responded, but I guess it's, you know, if he says, hey, you need to take the cartoon down, then we'll take the cartoon down.
Oh, I doubt it.
But
I doubt it.
I think he wants more people to, you know, it's like I tried to cater Neura Pod to do everything that Neuralink would want to do if they had a public facing podcast.
Right.
And so if we can inspire more kids to learn about neuroscience and we can educate more people about the potential of brain machine interfaces, or we can have people just aware that Neuralink exists and they're looking to hire for these different roles. If we can share all those different pieces of information to the public in a wide audience, then
right.
I think we're providing like real value to the company, and Elon would, I assume, want that to happen and exist.
Right. I feel like so many people know about like Tesla and SpaceX, and then, you know, some people know about Starlink, and then like, I feel like even less people know about Neuralink, but there's so much potential there. I mean, I don't know, maybe a good amount of people do, at least in my circles. I feel like when I mention that, you know, a lot of people don't know, but it's like, I feel like it's so important, and I'm definitely not a doubter. You know, so it's exciting to see. I mean, just imagine if it could help someone, you know, avoid the pain and, you know, just tragic outcomes of dementia and Alzheimer's. Like those are devastating illnesses, and yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's by far the thing that resonates with me the most, because I think Tesla has an admirable mission. Like I think I'm fully supportive of the idea of just like, you know, it's crazy to think that at one point or 100 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, oh, you had a non-renewable energy source at one point. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
And then not having reusable transportation to and from Mars or the moon, or not having internet accessibility all over the world, all these things, like people are going to look back and be like, oh, okay, why was that,
Right.
But for Neuralink, the amount of impact that they could have on just one person and their immediate family and friends, it's like the depth of impact there is just, I think the depth is greater than some of these other companies that Elon's working on.
Right.
So because of that, I think, yeah, that's what makes me so excited about it. Just quantifiably, maybe the volume, like the number of people impacted is less, but the depth that they're impacted is huge.
Right. I've had a lot of people, number one, accuse me of working for Starlink, which is not true, never has been true. And number two, say that Elon needs to hire me as a spokesperson. However, I think if that were the case, I couldn't do the channel. So is there a part of you that would want to work with Neuralink? And also, have you ever tried that?
I haven't tried that. Part of me, yes, would. Most of me would not, because one of the things that I was thinking at the time, like I was going to call the podcast Neuralink Pod. And like right before I started the channel, I changed the name to Neura Pod. And I'm so happy that I did, because it's a play on words for like brain, and then pod being like your skull basically, but it's obviously like podcast also. And then Neura is just like anything brain related.
Right.
So, and the space is so early. So there's companies like Kernel, Synchron, Neurable, Neosensory, just tons of different companies that are working on EEG technologies, brain machine interfaces, just stuff that's related. And I want to be able to give them a little bit of exposure too.
Yep.
And just showcase to as many people as possible, like, hey, there are fascinating things that people are able to do with this different technology. And hey, young kids, if this is at all interesting to you, you have the ability to tinker and you have the ability to learn via YouTube. So just explore it. And if it's a passion that grabs you, then be willing to study it and pursue it in the future, because the impact that you could have from learning about it is tremendous.
Right. Yeah, I think Neura Pod is a great name. I mean, it's easy to remember. That was kind of like, originally my channel was just Eliana Sheriff, which is my name. But like, how do you say that to someone in passing? Like, oh yeah, follow me, Eliana Sheriff. Well, how do you spell that? So I changed it to Ellie in space. And so, yeah, it's nice to just have, an easy to remember branding. Do you have a logo yet? You do, right? Kind of.
Yeah, like yeah, kind of, because we don't have like a formal logo, but we have the like word mark, and then like a general style. And then I guess I also had a high school friend create a logo, and I think it's really well done, and we've actually used it in some of the material, but I wouldn't say it's like a formal thing. But I think in 2022, I want to incorporate Neura Pod as like a really formal company, and
Right.
And yeah, just work on a ton of different initiatives that are outside of YouTube. And so when we do that, I think part of it will be not a full rebrand, but just like having a logo and yeah, other like different marketing materials and stuff like that.
What is your like posting schedule like? You have obviously like the monthly update, but do you do like random posts? Do you do every certain day?
Yeah, it's random. It started off once per week, every Wednesday, and then there's like a lull in how much news was coming out. Plus I got sick. And then, yeah, it just made it easier to be like, okay, well, we're just going to do sporadically. And then I started thinking, well, we want videos to live on for a long time. And I'd much rather have people watch one high quality video than 2 or 3 lower quality videos. So I haven't been as committed to consistency as I was initially,
Right.
but we're aspiring to get back to the point where we're not only doing high quality, but also consistent. And I think we'll be able to get there soon. But I think recently, like over the past 3 months, my time has primarily been like, okay, we want to spin up these different projects and initiatives, and they need to start gaining some traction before I'm more hands off. And so right now, like the main content is definitely not as consistent as I want it to be. And it's just not where I want it to be yet. But it'll re-become another bigger priority once we get these other things off the ground.
Yeah. It's so hard. I mean, especially like for me, like my news instincts are like, if something happens right now, why would I wait until Saturday to post about it? I don't want to be late to the party. So, but then, people like consistency, and like not a lot of people, I mean, even watch like during the week, but it's like, I'm very random about it, because I'm like, well, I know that I can get home after work and edit this and make it good enough to put up the next morning. And so that way, like, I'm not late to the party. But I don't know like if there would be like a better outcome if I just did like every weekend, same time, It's hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just one opinion, but I think to me, that's your advantage. Like if you can do all that, and your channel is basically vertically integrated, where you're the one that's doing all the way from bottom to top.
Right.
That's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a hustle.
Good.
It's a hustle. I mean, and I'm quick because
Yeah.
I mean, you're always working up against a deadline every day. And sometimes, I mean, it's like almost unthinkable how little time you have to like write and edit and then go live. So, but I also don't want to put out, a crappy product, right? But, I'm pretty good at, being quick and making it decent. But yeah, you learn as you go, right? You learn as you go. I mean, there's so many things that I've just, observed along the way, or watched other people talk to other YouTubers. So it's a constant process.
You have such a huge advantage, I think, with just even being able to ask good questions. Like to me, I primarily started thinking like I'm going to start this podcast with having pre-scripted episodes and just voice them over, because I know when I have to talk just off the cuff, it's not that great, especially if I'm not speaking to another person.
Right.
If I just like, oh, I read this article and now I have to represent it to an audience, like, oh, it's going to be awful. So I was thinking I'm going to start scripting 100% of the article or of the episode, voice it over, and then the next episode will be 99%, and 98, 90, 80. It hasn't turned out that way. But I was thinking, okay, the thing that I need to commit to is asking better questions to do interviews, because some of the information exists and is out there, but you have to be able to extract it out of these fascinating people. And I have not been able to do that well. And so I'm not only like jealous of people who have experience doing it, but I'm also like looking up to them too. Like Dave Lee, it's amazing what he's able to do with the questions that he asks. And so, yeah, I think that's your advantage, is you can ask questions to these different people in a nice way, and then you can do things quickly. And
yeah, I can ask questions all day, and I'm much better asking questions than giving answers. I think it's counterintuitive, because people think, oh, you need to have this battery of questions and you need to like know what you're going to say going into it. And I'm really just like, I bounce off of whatever information they're giving me. Like, I think, oh, I'm interested in, this part of whatever they just said, or this kind of makes me wonder this about it. And so I just kind of like go as, the conversation goes, and just bounce off whatever they say. So I don't know if that is like intuitive or not to you, but it might be worth trying because I really do not have a great plan going into these things. I really
Gotcha.
don't. And I don't know if that's good
Okay.
or bad. I mean, even when I flew to Boston to go talk to Avi Loeb at his house, I didn't have a great plan. Like
Okay.
my plan was to go there and ask him about the Galileo project and like, Oumuamua and UFOs. And like, that was kind of like the topic I wanted to focus on. But, as we were just like walking around his backyard, it's like, oh, like, how did you get interested in this? And, just from there, it's just, so I don't know if that's good or bad. I think what it does is it keeps it casual and it keeps it relatable. And I think, if you have learned anything from looking at people like Joe Rogan, people like that casual, conversational, even if it's 3 hours long, they'll listen because it's not just, I mean, there's a time and a place for scripted. And a lot of my stuff is kind of scripted, but I would just, yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's kind of your style too, but that's how I approach it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, we've tried to experiment with different things. So like there are some interviews that I'll have like every single question listed out, and I know that I'm not going to ask every single one, but that's okay because I feel like, okay, I've prepared and generally have an idea of where I'd like the conversation to go. Um, but then just it's like a dance when you're
Yeah.
communicating with the other person, and I'm terrible at dancing, and it shows when I'm communicating with them.
I don't know. I think like preparing is good, but like at a certain point, like, you have to be able to adapt in the moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Because as much as it would save time to like write all of my scripts beforehand, like that never works, especially since like a lot of my news writing, it has to be concise. And so sometimes I'll sit through like a 3 or 4 hour like city council meeting, which is not fun. Do not
Yeah.
recommend. But like after that, I have to take all of that information and I have 2 minutes. I have two
Right.
minutes, and that's interweaving my track with sound bites from whoever, maybe multiple people. So you need to be able to take all that information and make it super digestible for the listener, the viewer at home, because likely they're not going to rewind. You get one shot. You get one
Yeah.
shot to make their ears perk up and tune in and listen to what you're saying. So, it's that's the nice thing about YouTube is you're not like confined to like this little box of like no time. And I bet like I feel like for me, like being in TV news, it kind of makes sense to do it. But I mean, were you kind of like nervous at first? Like it's almost like public speaking a little bit, like were you kind of like, oh, I'm an engineer, like is this, gonna be weird?
Right. Yeah. I knew, like Rob had said, going back to Rob Maurer, like he had said that one of the reasons that he started his podcast was to get better at communicating and public speaking. And so I thought like, oh yeah, that would be something that would be good to get better at. And I didn't want, I think specifically he said he thought that it would hold him back in his career if he didn't get better at it. And so I was thinking like, yeah, that might be the same for me. It's just generally a useful skill to have anyway. And so going into it, I was like, okay, well, I know I'm not so great at it, but I could get better at it by doing this thing. So yeah, that's what I think that was a major reason that I had started too.
And
But
I bet it's worked.
it's gotten a little bit better. Still not that great.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's funny, like public speaking, I think is, number one fear for most people, and then death is like number two or something. So most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. Just quite sad, but yeah. So good for you.
I wasn't like super nervous about it, but I did feel like it was something that I need to improve on.
Yeah.
It wasn't like from a place of fear. It was like, yeah, it was just like literally like, I'm not that great at it, but I should get better.
Well, especially with so much like technical information, like how do you make that easy to listen to, especially for like the layman and something that, people don't glaze over. So that, That can be a challenge. I mean, I'm sure you have a bunch of people that like love like how technical it is, but I guess I always have to consider like the average viewer, and like
Right.
how are they going to understand the message that I'm trying to communicate to them?
Right. Right. Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole on that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's always a delicate balance. Well, hey, Ryan, thank you so much for dedicating all this time to just kind of, talk about your channel. And it's been really cool to get to know you. And is there anything else you just want to tell people watching, about Neuralink or anything that I missed that you wanted to add?
I should have expected this question, huh? Um, I don't know. Just I think it's cool that people are watching our channels and curious about the things that Elon and others are working on. I'm extremely excited about Neuralink, so hopefully more and more people will do the same and just be attentive to the progress that they're making. But yeah, I guess like I think I'm supportive of what you're doing, supportive of like the other YouTubers. I think it's still super early and lots of runway to go. So just keep going.
I feel like it's really great that, we're able to provide that information because I think it is really important, especially like you were saying, there wasn't a lot of like public information about Neuralink and just an easy way to like get those updates. So I think it's really valuable what you're doing. So good for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Starlink too with the IPO, like potential IPO.
I know.
Recent...
I'm like, I also don't know when that is. People love to ask me questions that I don't have the answer to, which is unfortunate. But that's the thing too, is like SpaceX, and I'm sure it's the same thing with Neuralink, or they're very tight-lipped. Like it's not like,
right.
Like I'm sure that's why you've interviewed former employees, right? Like you've probably never interviewed anyone who's actively working there.
Not yet. Trying to.
Yeah, it's hard. Like they're like, hey, like it's nothing personal, but like we can't. I've run into that at least with like trying to talk to people who are working on Starship and even Starlink. It's like they're like, we can't talk to you.
Gotcha.
Or at least like on record. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, maybe someday.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will probably get this up. I'll probably put it up this weekend. I think that's when most people have time to watch. So, and that'll give me some time to edit some B-roll into it. So yeah,
okay.
I'm excited. And hopefully you like how it turns out.
And I love having conversations just like this one, off script, just free flowing, really getting to know people. I have talked to people from all around the world. I've had some great conversations with Avi Loeb, Marcus House, of course, Ryan, and I plan to have many others. So if you enjoy discussions like this one, please let me know in the comments. And again, thank you all so much for your support. I look forward to bringing you more content soon.